you're talking about the contest, the creation of the contest. L. Ron Hubbard said that art is a quality of communication, and what it actually does by the illustrations for yourself in the case of this cover, but the winning artist as well, with the winning stories, really enhances the just the whole communication of that story itself, because the art itself being communication and the story being communication, it just makes it all the better. And that's why The Writers of the Future remains one of the best-selling anthologies out there of
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes. So with that, I think we should get going now with our cover reveal.
Yes.
So, let's go ahead, Jason. Let's go ahead and start the screen share. So we'll start off. We have the initial image of the that we're promoting the cover reveal. Then
mystery shadow.
So you're going to open up to view. There we go. So here we go now. So Bob, over to you here.
All right. This is kind of like where, okay, what's there? What's there? It's kind of, you know, well, let's keep it nice and okay. The way this started is that I talked to Maliva and she really got into this mammoth painting I did. And I did this mammoth painting in 2007, believe it or not. And there it is. And it was for another purpose entirely. And it was actually never published. And so mammoths are like whales. They're extremely popular. So she and I started like going back and forth with this. And at this point, Maurice got involved with the whole thing. And we started going around like, what would be kind of cool to have these mammoths doing that ties into a futuristic and a past way and sort of science fiction. And here we got, you know, because mammoths are like whales. It's like everybody loves them, you know? And so the theory was like, let's do a sketch, let's come up with an idea, and then Galaxy Press, you guys, would do a survey to see how well it went over with sort of people would you buy this book? What does this book say to you? And so on. And that's a really good way to go about things. This is a great way to gauge your audience. And the idea was, I said, like, I wanted to create you know, in this one, it's a mammoths walking past a giant melting glacier back in the Ice Age. Move ahead, next slide. All right, so I put a piece of paper, I printed it out, took a printout of it, and I was literally had the phone in one hand, and I was talking to Maurice and Maliva on the you know, we're going back and forth, and I'm sketching this thing in, going like, how can I work it? I'm thinking, and I'm starting to see robots. We started to think about, because robots did so well for the last cover that I did with them. And so and I thought, how about we have these robots herding mammoths? And so this is me doing, this sketch took about 10 minutes, maybe. That's working really quick with Pigma markers. And you can see what I'm doing. I'm putting like a lines where the spine's gonna go and all that to get an idea. Next. And there we go. That's how I started breaking it down like that. And I said, well, let's, you know, the spine theoretically could be there. And so, and I'm thinking, because it's an illustration, it's a cover art, you're always going to have to make room for type at the top. So nothing can go in the upper, on the right-hand side, looking at it, you've got something where it's going to have to say Writers of the Future, volume, 38. On the back side, we're going to have a bunch of cover blurb with the writers' names and the illustrators, judges' names, and all that, and so on and so forth. And down in the lower right of the cover, I thought, well, that will be where the writers, the major headliners will go, and so on. So next. And I started playing around with my digital iPad thing here, and I started drawing in some things and playing around with a little bit more and messing around with it just a little bit more and getting an idea myself where I was going, because at this point, I had to remind myself where I was going. So next. I always have to remind myself where I'm going, believe me. I'm 61. No. Anyway, here's a pencil I did of this, and I thought of these robots coming in, and I thought, again, I did this real super quick, and I do this quickly because I try to get it down really fast before I lose the energy for doing it. And one of my things when I do preliminaries and roughs is I also don't put too much into them because of at first, because one, they're going to change, and two, I don't want that energy to be lost on the final piece. So next. All right, this is what I did was I went and I took a full-size I photocopied a giant version of the mammoth painting, and then I placed it over the canvas I was going to work on, and then over that I placed a big bunch of tracing paper. So I started tracing off my robotic elements and tracing off the mammoth elements and adding in the spaceship, as you see. And originally there was going to be 2 spaceships in there, but I just think that one kind of gets the point across. And no pun. Anyway, next. So here we go. This is how things are coming together. And at this point, I wasn't sure about the robots. So I was trying to think of, like, should they be kind of a little faceless, or should they be, I don't want to make them hostile either. I don't want to make them too, and then the other problem we're having, next, is I don't want them competing with the mammoth's face, which is a very gentle face, So I'm thinking, let's give the robots maybe a little bit less of a identity to them and make them more, and of course I put them in kind of like they're wearing skins, and they've got things like this could be the past of the Earth. It could be the past of some other planet. It could be the future. We don't know. Next. And you see what I did was the lower left, I printed out the sketch that I threw together. I got the thing back from Maliva after she did this wonderful compositing it, and I took it into my own iPad and I worked some digital, and you can see in the lower, the 2 robots, I kind of colored them in, and the spaceship, I made it shiny. So it gave me a much better idea. And I'm not a digital artist. I'm not a thing against it, but I find it a useful tool when I'm able to use it. So here's how that all came together, and it's looking like it is. And I'm sort of like using it also as a color study where I'm going to go. Now, mind you, I don't have to do the painting all over again. I just have to paint in new elements that are going in. I don't. The fact of the matter is that there was a little bit of time constraint involved, and we really had to get moving on this thing. And so why reinvent the wheel? In some other day, in a year or so, I'll go back and I'll paint it all in, and it'll look all nice, and somebody will buy it or something like that. Anyway, go next. And that's kind of how it all comes together as a drawing, the sketch, and that's all drawn out on a 24 by 36 canvas. And you see what I've done is I've reproduced all my same images of the mammoths and the glacier and everything, but I've just added in the other elements too. And I'm keeping in mind where we're going to go. At this point, I think Maliva did a really nice rough in of where the type was going to go. Just really super throw together rough in of where the type was going to go. So that kept me aware of where to keep artwork sort of minimalized, not out of, because type and artwork can go together very nicely. It's just they should never compete with each other at the same time. Next. And this is me roughing in. I did this in about an afternoon, I think. I kind of work the sky in, and the way I paint, I work in oil, and I work like the Hollywood matte painters do. I tend to work with this, the old system of matte painting, where they would paint with oils and they would create more details with illusion and stepping back from the work and moving forward and stepping back. And that's kind of where I was going with that. And then I started sort of putting in a base coat of amber all over the entire painting itself, even though I'm not going to finish the entire painting, as you'll see what we're going to do. But Picasso had this thing as the scariest thing in the world is a white canvas. So this is my advice to artists: take the canvas and just stain the whole thing, just mess it all up, just put all color into it, And anyway, next. And here we go. This is me working them in. I worked the robots in a little bit differently. I wanted them to have more simple and readable faces. And this is really, you see the sky really came together nicely. And I love painting shiny surfaces. And so the rocket went in really nicely. It's not like I have 8, 9 of these rockets sitting around the house, so I can use them for models and reflective purposes and things of that nature. And then I decided, let's paint a little base grass and things like that, so that would make her easier for Maurice to sort of digitally like merge the two together. And it looks really it's coming together nicely. And go on, next one. And that's the first one. Is that the first painting?
Yeah, that's the original.
Okay. All right. Now, here's what we did was his example of what we're doing. We take that painting and we're merging some of the background with the new piece that I did with the old piece. So all that's going in really nicely. And you can see that nice little, that square illustrates how this is all coming together like a puzzle. And so, you know, Marisa, she'd run this to me back and forth. She'd send this to me and say, well, how does this look? How does this look? And I'm like, that looks great. Looks great. And then, you know, I would even think of go back and touch something up a little bit. But anyway, we sent her a big file of this, a nice big heavy duty file of this, and a file of the original artwork from 2007. So she could now mesh the two of them together. The two could become one.
Now, Maurice, do you have anything to say about that, Maurice, while you're there?
Sure. So what I did is I literally took every piece that we will see in a moment, the rocket, the metal mans, and I incorporated them on the surface of the original painting in Photoshop in different layers. And then you'll see the following frames here that Bob will explain, where they come together and I sort of give and take some of the art so that it comes together and it integrates, so that the new elements don't look like they're sticking out, but they're definitely integrating.
Right, exactly. And that's how they look. And there we go. And this is how it all come together. And you see the original artwork from you see the original artwork from 2007 and 2008, and the robots, this first robot came together. And let's see the next one. And this guy came in, he just dropped into the picture, and Scotty beamed. And so, you know, now we have a whole new painting, basically. So, but it's made from the old one, but and there's some paintings I had to look at my old painting and I had to get back and think, you know, how did I do that? I'm thinking like, you know, I'm going back to like 2007 and my brain is addling going like, okay, now I got to refresh myself on how I did that. So there it is. And next, are we going next or no?
Yeah.
Okay, so Marisa at this point said, you know, it'd be really great if we put some birds in there. And I said, you know, I'll just go paint you some birds. And I went into my studio and I painted her 4 birds on a piece of paper like this. And I took a shot of it and it was great and sent it to her, and she melded that in, and the birds really worked well to kind of give us a bit of interest. Next. And there's how the birds work up in the upper left-hand thing. They give an element of interest. And I was kind of I would have put that in it anyway, but I was kind of suspect that we were going to have to put a lot of type and stuff like that. But you know, I really love how the clouds came out on that. It's just seeing it even here. It's just, the clouds really came out nice on that. And again, I wanted this romantic kind of sky looking as if you're looking at kind of something, again, like the old Hollywood map paintings, that you had this almost a glorified sky. It's like, it's not necessarily a photoreal sky. It's just a glorified image with the rays of sun coming through it and so on. And it's, and so here we got 2 robot characters. And at this point, David Farland got a hold of it. And we sent it to him. I sent him the rough anyway. And he wrote the story around it. He wrote an entire story, which I've yet to read, but it was edited and just before his death. So it's very special to me that this is the last thing he wrote before he passed away. And so I've dedicated this painting to him. So this cover is dedicated to him. So that's the thing you do. But it was a great team effort, and I love seeing how, and it's a great example of how you can take something that's an original painting, like, you know, my original artwork, and then turn it into this you take some digital and work this and rework this and reinsert this. This is technology you wouldn't have had like even 20, 30 years ago. This just wouldn't have happened. So this is where it's very useful in it, and I'm very thrilled to be part of that kind of thing. And so the whole thing, again, you're looking at a cover and you're looking at spine type, how that's going to go, and so on. So next one, and voila, there we are.
There we go. That's awesome.
There it is. Isn't it?
Yay.
Yay. Awesome. Yeah, no, I see how we did the thing, and I absolutely love, I just noticed this. I love how the future is just behind the mammoth's head. So it gives us this three-dimensional kind of look to it. And boy, I'm sounding like Carl Sagan. And you know, it has kind of and there's, you've got all of the great quotes going down the back, and you've got all of the stories and the selected judges by, I mean, even in there too. And of course, you know, the front headliner is Frank Herbert, Brian Herbert, Kevin J. Anderson, Diane Dillon, and edited, of course, by David Farland. And it just really looks nice. It's really, and it doesn't look, how can I say, there's a lot of artwork that looks really dark these days on book covers. And I go to the bookstores a lot, like Barnes and Noble, and I look at things and I think everything is just dark, or browns and everything, and greens and stuff like that. And everything is a little bit, you know, and very, very, very overly type. I mean, there's a lot of type on this, but this is where the type is nothing but type on things. And so it's really nice to see something that's painted coming back. And so it's I'm really happy to be proud of that. I'm happy to be part of that. So,
and we're very happy that you're part of it too. I just want Maliva right now briefly. Can you come in and describe a little bit, because Bob,
please do.
Bob talked a little bit about Frank Herbert, but just something very special about this book too that people don't know.
I'm not sure what you're thinking of, but I wanted to tell a little bit about David Farland writing this story, since it was his last story. The story is called A Word of Power. And he wrote this: over the past few years, I've had a lot of people ask if the Writers of the Future contest accepts flash fiction or short shorts. We do. In fact, we had a short as a finalist for this book, and we had another last year. So when I was asked to write a story for this volume, I thought it was a great opportunity to bring in a flash piece about magic and wonder and longing for home and joy. So that's
very nice.
That's Dave's, what Dave had to say about that story. And yeah, he did finish it just a few days before he passed. But it's a lovely story. And Dave did place it in our prehistoric time with Neanderthals and the humans and Mammoth Clan, the Neanderthal Mammoth Clan, or and yeah, so it's about magic and longing for home, and then the metal men come to take the mammoths away. So it's a little bit of what happened in the Neanderthals and the mammoths, and this is Dave's take on where they went. Anyway, that's fun.
That's a great idea. No, I'm and I talked to Dave a little. I had this correspondence with him, and I got some of his emails, and so it's kind of like, you know, this is the most stunning thing when you think, you know, he's just not there. And I was emailing him maybe 10 days beforehand or something like that. It just really floored me when that, I mean, just, yeah. And so the only thing I could do is I dedicate it to him, and very happy that he found something where he took my image and wrote a story around it, which excites me a lot, because I'm used to illustrating a lot of authors' things. And there's a lot of times with authors, I could say to them things like, visually, this would be cool if you did this, and this would be cool if you did that. Because the trouble with illustrating sometimes is getting a visual hook on something. It's very difficult to get a hook on something that is going to be outstanding. And I mean, people will say to you, oh yeah, well, the movies look really great and all that, but it really wouldn't look like that in real life. And I know a lot of hard science writers, with great respect to them and all due respect, where they get, and there's nothing really visual going on. And so, see, to me, you've got to make a visual hook. So that's my way of that's my way of it's it's the is it the cart following the horse, or whatever. It's
Yeah.
So I'm excited about it. This is such a great thing.
That's awesome. And one of the things too I was going to suggest, Maliva, on this was on the story from Frank Herbert. It's been never published before story.
Right.
And the
Yeah.
essay was, I think, the last thing he ever wrote when he was in his deathbed. And this was the essay he wrote for the Rise of the Future contest. I think that's pretty cool.
Cool. Yeah,
Right,
no, that's great.
Yeah, so the single most important piece of advice, and he wrote it for Writers of the Future, and it was originally published in a volume 2, and with Dune coming out, et cetera, it just seemed like a good time to have some tie-in. So we're publishing that article, and we are also publishing a short story called The Daddy Box, which is a science fiction fantasy story that's not like Dune at all, and but it's about a boy who finds a magical box, and it changes his life, it changes his father, it changes his mother, like everything changes for the better, and it's a really fun, amazing story.
And it's never been published before.
Yeah. And then we have an article from Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson. It's called Teamwork, the Getting the Best Out of Two Writers. And they talk about all their co-writing and how they co-write. So we have a great presence from the Herberts and Kevin Anderson.
There's a great illustration on the third artist.
Right. We have a wonderful piece from Diane Dillon about, and it's called The Third Artist, and it talks about how she and her husband work together, and rather than be individual artists, they together created the third artist, which they have an amazing story as an interracial marriage and working together and publishing, and in the 60s and the 70s. I mean, they've just done some incredible work together. And it's just actually it was really amazing as the book was coming together, because we have this article from Brian and Kevin, and they work together amazingly in a similar way that that Dillons were working together, which is that they create their writing together. It is not necessarily how either of them would write, but together they've created their own style. So there's some really great content in terms of those things in this book. And then of course we have some wonderful stories, and we have all these winners that are here. Yeah, I'm happy to see so many of our winners are in volume 38 that are here. So anyway, yeah, that's exciting.
I want to thank everybody for joining us today for this. And I'm going to thank you very much for Bob for answering all these questions and for walking us through how you came up with this amazing cover. I hope you guys love it. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much, guys. Wonderful seeing you all.
And everybody